We all want to make a connection. I'm Valerie Greenberg, the confidence boosting connector, and this is Crosstown Connections on Bella TV. Hey guys, I'm Valerie Greenberg coming to you from the Copper Still in New York City, and we're about to sit down with Remi Adeleke. His story is so inspiring. He's a former U.S. Navy SEAL who just wrote a book about it. I cannot wait to hear what he's going to share with us. Hi guys, Valerie Greenberg, your host of Crosstown Connections with Remi Adeleke. This gentleman, Navy SEAL, actor, producer, and now you can add author. We're going to get a close-up of that later to your resume. That's amazing. Your book, Transform. Tell us what really inspired you to write it and a little bit about your journey.
Well, people, over the last, I don't want to say 8 years, people have been coming up to me who've heard my story, and they're like, dude, you need to write a book. Your story's just super inspirational. And then back in 2017, I was in a film called Transformers last night, and so I was part of the press tour.
Yeah, we've heard of it.
And I went on the Today Show, and live on the air, Kathy Lee, after I shared part of my story, she was just like, dude, you need to write a book, and your book needs to be made into a movie. And when we got backstage, she continued on with this book idea, and I was just like, no. And she said, why? And I explained to her that there's a stigma attached to SEALs who write books. And she was like, but Remi, I know your heart would be to inspire people and not beat your own chest. And I said, yeah, that's true. And then she said, let me walk you to a publisher. So she walked me to my publisher, and that's how I got my book deal and started writing.
Well, speaking of Kathy Lee, she and Hoda were both actually on Bella Magazine's cover.
Oh, yeah.
So that's amazing and good energy. And that's just so inspiring. So someone in this business, a professional, actually inspired you and helped drive you to write this book. So our show, Crosstown Connections, is all about connecting, and we're really excited to meet and get to know you a little bit more. So what can you reveal about your life, the process of writing this book, maybe, 1 or 2 years prior to actually putting pen to paper?
What was my life like before I started?
Yeah, before you started writing it.
Well, I was in Hollywood. I got my opportunity in Transformers, and so I was acting, and then that kind of opened up more doors.
You created an opportunity for yourself.
I don't even want to say I created, because I was in my office writing papers for grad school when I got the phone call. I wasn't trying to act. I wasn't even thinking about acting. I was minding my own business, and one day I get this phone call from this lady who's like, hey, Michael Bay's looking for a former Navy SEAL who's African-American to play a small role. Are you available? And I said, sure. The next day I was on set, and that one day turned into 3 weeks, and 3 weeks turned into 6 months. So I didn't create the opportunity. I was minding my own business, and it came knocking on my door. And that's how it all came together.
That's amazing. And actually, you probably were able to shed a lot of light on the set, too, because of your real life experience as a Navy SEAL, I imagine.
Absolutely. Like, I worked with the actors as far as, like, how to hold a weapon properly, specific language to use, and that sort of thing. So it was kind of like double dipping. Yeah.
That's amazing, because truthfully, people and actors in general need real life expertise in order to do a job, so we believe it.
Absolutely, and I do that. Like, I just finished on Michael Bay's last film. It's Rap, but it doesn't come out until the winter on Netflix. And I spent from July to December working on that film, primarily as a consultant. Working on with the costume department, props department, on set. With action sequences, and then even some dialogue, to make it more realistic, because, you need to have somebody who has that experience to be able to make the film look real, or it's just going to look crazy.
You bring that authenticity to the storyline.
Exactly.
That's amazing. And so how did you develop these connections on set with some of the actors and the producers? I mean, now even you getting more into writing and whatnot, how do you think that being able to genuinely talk to them about being a SEAL helped you make these connections to get you to your next role in life?
I would just say, one, always I was respectful. I never walked around set like, hey, I'm a SEAL, listen to me. I just stayed in my corner. I kept my mouth shut unless somebody asked me a question. I just tried to be a quiet professional.
Because it was a new environment for you?
I just tried to be like that in general. You know what I mean? I think people respect that. They respect, hopefully this doesn't sound narcissistic, but they respect humility. And I think that's what was seen to me, and that's what helped foster and create these strong connections and relationships. And now I could pick up a phone and call somebody, and they'll take my phone call because they know I wasn't walking around obnoxious, or I wasn't asking, hey, can you help me, which a lot of people do. I was just like, I made myself available. Yeah. The way I tried to write the book is 99.999% of people on the face of this planet will never be a Navy SEAL, right? But 99.99% of people on the face of this planet will face adversity, will have a dream that they will fail at or they won't be able to achieve the first time around. And so what I'm excited about when I open up the book is the fact that I didn't write it from a point B perspective. I wrote it from a point A to B perspective, right? And so people will be able to see my failures, my mistakes, my vulnerability, and say, wow, like, if this guy made these mistakes over and over again, and he's being honest about it,
Sure.
and I have experienced these same mistakes in my life, then I can still strive for to be successful or to be a better husband or wife or be a better person or, achieve my dream.
That really is a beautiful message. I mean, I think that so many of us are scared to show our vulnerable side and to be honest and to say, hey, we messed up. But it was part of your journey and to get you here now. I mean.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And how important would you say to people it is to really relish in those moments of mistakes to move forward?
No, I 110%. I mean, I have a saying, and that saying is, a failure is only a failure if you don't learn from it. But if you learn from it, it's a lesson, because that's something that I had to learn with my failures. And once I finally figured it out, that's when I really began to be propelled forward into my future, When we make a mistake, we have a failure, we have to first and foremost take responsibility and ownership for that failure. We have to say, you know what? It was me. It wasn't somebody else's fault. It wasn't my mom's fault. It wasn't the sister. It was me, right? And then after we do that, then we'll be able to properly examine that failure for those lessons. And then once we examine that failure, we'll pull those lessons out and use them. And for example, when I went to SEAL training, the first time, I had barely learned how to swim, and I failed pretty much almost every swim in SEAL training, and I made it about halfway through the program, and I ended up getting kicked out of training. And when I got kicked out, the lesson that there were two lessons that kind of came to me immediately, and the first lesson was one. Learn how to swim if you're going to go to SEAL training, right?
Stay above water.
Yeah, know how to swim. And two, never show up to anything in life unprepared, regardless of what it is, whether it's speaking, whether it's writing, whether it's producing, whether it's being a doctor or whatever, doing homework, whatever. Never show up to anything in life unprepared, And I took those two lessons on board. And for 2 years, I learned how to swim, and I made sure that I was getting prepared. And I went back to SEAL training prepared, and I made it through. And now, the rest is history. So, again, a failure is only a failure if you don't learn from it. But if you learn from it, it's a lesson.
I love that. Do the work. Put it in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Don't quit. Recognize your mistakes and move forward. Don't let failure define you. So often people are easily defined by their failures. Oh, I failed, so that means that I will never, ever be able to be this. Or that means I need to pick another job. Or that means whatever. I can throw out a bunch of different examples. But when you fail, don't let it define you or define your future. Instead, find a lesson in it that you could use for your future.
I love that. And you're a dad of 3. So how do you suppose that you are going to sort of enlighten them with all of your knowledge and hope that they, don't take the missteps that you maybe made when you were younger. But again, it got you to this amazing place.
Yeah. I think the most important way to teach people in general, especially kids, is by example, right? Because I could tell them all day long, don't do this, don't do that, but I do what I'm telling them not to do, and I'm just living in hypocrisy, right? And so I think, what I try to do is I try to teach them by modeling, hey, be respectful of women. Okay, what does that mean? I need to be respectful to my wife, right? Absolutely. Modeling, don't lie. What does that mean? I cannot lie to them. And one thing that I do all the time, and it gets me in trouble with my wife sometimes, is if I tell my kids I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
You deliver.
I do it. And I say it's got me in trouble because my kids, when they see a commercial for a movie that they want to see, like, a superhero movie, and I tell them yes, my wife...
You got to run it by mommy first.
Yeah, but when I tell them yes, and my wife, searches the trailer and she sees, oh, it's too much in there, and we're not talking about any crazy movies. We're talking about like Avengers and stuff.
I saw that last night.
Okay, so then she's like, no, don't go see it. I I've taken them anyway, but only because I promised them.
Absolutely.
And I need to keep my word, and I want them to learn the importance of when you tell somebody you're going to do something, you better do it.
100%.
Teach them by example.
Oh, I love it. Sitting with you is very inspiring. And I just want to rewind really quickly. I know that you moved to the States when you were younger. If you could just tell us a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, so my dad, he was very wealthy, Nigerian engineer. We lived a rich life, a life of opulence, traveled the world, nannies, cars, drivers.
All the bells and whistles.
Yeah, all the bells and with silver spoon. And Nigerian government in 1987, they stripped my father of his most valuable asset, this asset that he had invested millions and millions of dollars in. And when that happened, we went from rich to poor. My dad died days later, and that's how my mom and I ended up, and my brother and I ended up permanently relocating to New York City, the Bronx specifically. My mom, she was American. She met my dad at the Metropolitan Museum of Natural History. They got married 5 months later, and then she moved to Africa with him. So there was no way my mom was going to raise her kids in Africa. Then that's why we came here. And yeah, I grew up in the Bronx. Because I didn't have a father, I began to look for a father in other things, and street culture and hip-hop culture and all that. And, that led to me, just stealing and selling drugs and running scams and hooking up and, just being a wild, crazy dude, And by the time I was 19, I had built like this illegal enterprise, and I had a record company that I was using my legal money to fund, but ended up getting involved in a deal with a drug dealer that went bad. He came knocking on my mom's apartment door, threatened my life, and I made him his money back, but that was a huge wake-up call for me. That was the call that I needed that eventually ended up playing a huge role in me getting out of the Bronx and joining the Navy.
Well, I truly love the transformation, and thank you for being so honest and vulnerable with us. You are absolutely amazing,